Right, so first of all, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. I've got two jobs at the moment, really. I work as an innovation mentor at Brunel University, but on the flip side, I've just gone back to university to study business intelligence and MSc in business intelligence. The reason that I've done that after spending about sort of 15 years in marketing is I started to realise I had quite a varied career, but I can now make sense of it. If that, it didn't make sense when I originally started. My first business that I started was a magazine when I was at university. My main demands for that at that time was I wanted to go to gigs for free, I wanted sweets, and I wanted cheap clothes. So we went out and we sold advertising space and we made that happen. Then I went and worked at UBS around the corner in finance because I thought, well, that would be where all the money is. But it was really elitist. It was very male. And I really wasn't that interested in just making money for money's sake. But I was really interested in the marketing department. And I was interested in what their fundamental thing that they were doing, which was getting people to do something that they hadn't done before, triggering people's behaviour, which led me to go and work for a guerrilla marketing company, where I learned probably the best piece of advice I ever had, which was just say yes to a piece of business and we'll work out how we'll make it happen. And although that led to some quite chaotic moments and lots of grey hairs, it did help me to realise that if you're brave and you back yourself and you put yourself out there, it's amazing how much further you'll go. And also, it's really important that the failures are probably the most important lessons that you're ever going to have. We talk about sometimes in my agency that it's like a fertilizer. A good business has to grow in like a really strong fertilizer, and one of the most potent things you can have in there is the lessons that you'll learn from failures, like making shoes and not really working out whether the quality control is going to be there. So I then went and worked for a couple of comms agencies, ad agencies, and then set up my own business because I realised that I was making a lot of money for other people and I wasn't getting that value. And that fired me up, and I thought, well, we're going to go out, we're going to do this. So we set up a business, myself and my founder, who sadly left after 3 months, so that was a failure for me to learn by. But what we did was we set up a global business where we looked at consumers and we thought about them not as demographics, but we thought about them as what they were interested in. And we went out there, we sold to people like Coca-Cola, Converse, small little businesses as well that were fledgling companies. And we worked on helping them to connect with consumers around their passion points. So people that were into house music, we took Coca-Cola to Ibiza. We ran a mentoring scheme for them with some of the top DJs in the world. And it was all really fast and it was furious, but I was getting really frustrated with being the CEO because, as I'm sure you'll agree, when you're the CEO, all the problems come to you, and sometimes the exciting, the new stuff is what your employees do. And I was starting to feel like I was lagging behind, and at that time I had a client called Ray-Ban, and they said, will you come and work for our media agency? We need someone who's got your business and your understanding of what we're trying to do. And I thought, well, OMD, biggest media agency in the world, that'll be amazing. Big chip stack, we'll be able to do some great stuff. But what I learned when I was there, getting to the point of it, I will always use 50 words instead of 5, was that they didn't understand the information that they had, and they weren't asking the right questions. And that's what I realised and that's why I've gone back to university, is I know the questions that I want to ask, but I don't know how to find the answers. So I'm studying business intelligence to understand what questions, but most importantly, where to find that information. So I've been asked to talk to you about turning users into consumers. And for me, that's kind of turning startups into upstarts. What my state of mind is, I want you to start thinking about as you grow, you should always be anticipating. Your ambition should guide you, and that should be as far as you should plan for the ambition, and you may end up sort of halfway. So I just put working girl up because, 80s kids and whatnot, but I learned so much from watching that. I thought it was going to be, that was how life was going to be. She's really badass. She doesn't, the boys are an accessory to what she's doing. She lives in New York, which I loved doing. I did it for a short space of time, and it was fantastic. But she was also really good at picking up disparate pieces of information and using those to make her business idea better. So, she reads the Financial Times or the Wall Street Journal, but at the same time, she's reading page 6, the gossip column, to find out how things are changing business. And it was probably the worst thing I ever said in an interview when I said I wanted to be the girl out of Working Girl, but head for business, body for sin. But I do genuinely believe that you've got to really, you don't know where the information's going to come from, and it's all about going out, meeting people, having conversations, and they can seem as disparate as possible, but you'll find gleans of pearls of knowledge in there. So here we are talking to you about what we're going to talk about. So this is the scenario we're going to go through. You've got a user base, okay? And it's like a big disco. You've created your own social party. People are sharing things. I'm dropping pens. They're liking, and they're getting involved. They're enjoying the vibe. They really like, what you're doing. The problem is you're a business. You're not a hobby, as we've already said. You need them to convert. You need them to become consumers. Now, there are 4 main people within this group. We've got personas, but within those, you've got 4 different types of people. You've got people that are going to buy, okay? You've got people that are never going to buy from you. There are people that you're going to turn off by talking to them. And then there are people that you can convince to buy. So when you're thinking about investing money in communicating with these people, and that could be money, it could be actual hard cash and buying your media, or it could be time and effort. These are the people you want to focus your time on, okay? You want to be focusing as much money on these people, but you also want to be really mindful that you don't want to turn these people off, okay? Because these people, once they've gone and they've left your user group and you've irritated them and they're like, I'm not interested in you, I am out of this brand, it's really, really hard and really expensive to bring them back. So the galaxy. So what I'm saying here is basically out there are a number of questions, because that's quite difficult. When you're sat there looking at your followers or etc., and you're thinking, well, who's each of those? How do I know? And there is a galaxy of data. Obviously, I'm going to talk about data of answers. You just need to really work out and future-proof your business where those answers are going to come from. So the questions that you're going to be asking yourself as a business are things like, when's my off season? If you're an event based, so the 2 main sort of types of businesses, you're either subscription based or you're event based. So either I'm going to buy into you and I'm going to give you money on a regular basis, like Netflix, as we mentioned, or it's event based. It could be I'm going to buy your product, and then I might come back again, and you have to kind of get me to buy it again, right? So when's my off season, Perhaps I'm not interested in healthy, holistic tan products in the winter because I've got my legs nice and hairy by then. Or it could be, and you want to think about what good behavior you want to reward, right? And that's really important. It took me a long time to learn that you should be rewarding good behavior. So don't give yourself cheap, okay? So, you want to be saying, thanks very much for coming to shop with me. Here's 5% off, or here's an extra added bonus. Don't give that out before I've even come to your party. And then you want to know about where you're making the most money, and can we make more that way? So if you're finding, for example, Instagram is really pushing through shopping, and you're making money out of commission with the people that you're featuring, great. Can you do more of that? Is this the same group that you can do? And these are the questions that you should be asking yourself as a business. How often are people going to buy? If I'm a body scrub, am I going to buy it once a month, 3 times a year? What is that going to be? And then I can then start to build my financial model on that. Who are my active promoters? So who are the people who are retweeting me or sharing me, or actually just generally sitting around and going, I've tried this new body oil or whatever, it's really nice, it's amazing, you should buy it. Or it could be that they're posting reviews on Amazon. They are active promoters. And then everybody likes to work in it's a lonely business, running a business. You have to, as I said, you have to back yourself, but you also have to convince yourself that you're right a lot of the time. You've got to trust your gut, as Scandal would say, but you've got to make sure that you're making the most valuable relationships possible for your business. Now, that's not to say that you just dismiss everybody else, but focus on the ones that are really helping you to make more money. So if you've got all these questions in your mind, you've got to make sure that you're picking up that information. Okay, so when we're thinking about how to turn users into consumers, you want to be thinking about this is what I learned in data class actually this week, which is you create like a fact table, and this should be measurements. And you want to think about where all that information is going to come from. You know, what do I want to do, and what questions do I want to answer? What do I need to know in order to make sure I can make informed decisions when I start to invest money? And remember that don't know costs you money. You know, it's very easy to say, oh, I don't like making websites, or I don't feel comfortable doing that. But every time you reaffirm in yourself that you don't know something, it means you're going to have to pay someone else to do it, and that's money that's out of your wallet. So the sooner you know it, the cheaper the lesson will be, because you want to be able to build, for example, my example was a website. You want to be able to understand how to do that at the beginning, because otherwise you're always going to give people money, and as you get more successful, you're going to be spending more and more. And remember that the best price is zero, and just negotiate up from there, okay? So business, we said, like, you need to be making money, or it's a hobby, but the definition is it can be goods or services as well. So there may be a barter there, but just remember that if people are doing things for what they think of as free, you're going to be right on the bottom of their priority list. This is what most agencies will adhere to. This is their doctrine. So you've got your brand, okay? So this is what we were talking about earlier on in terms of get that right. Now, a brand as a fundamental is what a person has in their mind when they hear your name. And that could, and as we say, that could be your behaviour. You know, it's just basically what they think about, okay? And then obviously you've got your mind. So this is more functional. So this is, you fall in love with a brand, okay? You build like a relationship with them, but you actually buy based upon the functional benefits of that product. They'll be the things that will tip you from liking something to buying it. So awareness is, I know what that brand is. And I think someone for me, I always have to take it down to sort of boys, girls, relationships. Like this is, I noticed you about, okay? This is, yeah, could be. And as you funnel down, it's like, yeah, well, he likes football, I like football, or whatever. And you're building up these reasons why you're gonna be together, or you're gonna buy that. And then after that, I feel like there's another bit, which is the loyalty and the advocacy. And this is where social really comes in. This is when people say, I totally buy into your brand. And actually, you're kind of part of me. I'm part of your gang. So that's what everyone's sort of had. And they've all been really happy with that. And the other thing about this funnel is it's been really assumed that, like, once you're in, you go dung, 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 and you fall through. But it's not. It's actually a set of filters, okay? So when you think back to what I was saying about the 4 different types of people in your user group, what you're doing is those people that are alienated by you or don't buy, they sort of filter out as you go down that, okay? So it's not, if they know me, they'll buy me. It's not at all. That's just the start. But we're now in a world where, it's not that simple, or it's slightly more complicated. You know, we're in the world of Tinder. I don't have to swipe left or right. In fact, I can actually leave the shop. You know, I mean, when we all do it, I know you do because I've looked at it when we worked with ASOS. The amount of people who go buy things all online, and then they go, actually, I'm not buying any of that, and they leave the store. You know, I may do that in TK Maxx, but there are a very small amount of shops where I literally go, nah, not having it. So actually, what we've started to move to is this infinite loop. So this is kind of so where we talked about brand awareness at the beginning, this is me knowing about your brand, but maybe not being in the market. So right now, I think the 2 big flags would be VW and Samsung. So both of them, I'm not in the market to buy a phone, I'm not in the market to buy a car, but I do know that if I were in the market for either of those at the moment, because of what I've heard about, you know, shady testing, etc., or blowing up planes, not yet, I probably wouldn't choose those. So, you know, even though I'm not in this active consideration, I'm making decisions. So then this paid consideration is where I'm going to take you on to the next slide so I can explain it a little bit more. I mean, this is kind of made for bigger businesses, people that have got quite a big chip stack at the moment, but the fact is it's all relevant to what you're doing. It's just your channels might be slightly different. So here we are with paid consideration. We're trying to choose emotional content. This is where I'm trying to make you love me. So I want to get you into that consideration set. So if we're thinking like boys or whatever, or that's sadly how I think, it's like, well, who am I considering I might hang out with this evening? So you'd be looking at these kind of places. So it's cinema, it's out of home, it's the big TV ads, it's building those relationships with celebrities like we talked about earlier on. It might be search, I'm just popping up where you're starting to search for, I don't know, place to go this evening. It might be events. You've gone to concert at Hyde Park and I just happen to be Bacardi in the corner doing the best mojitos, which might then lead to you buying a Bacardi bottle for home. Then you've got more sort of rational content. So for me, this would be like, this is an out of home, like Old Street roundabout. So that's a big, high vantage point. But then I might want to talk to you, I might want to connect with you at an out-of-home in a supermarket, because I'm really close to purchase. And it's a slightly different conversation that I'm going to have with you here. Here I'm like, hiya, know who I am? Here I'm saying, this is what I can do for you. So it's a slightly different conversation that you're going as you go down that filter. But just remember, people can fly off at any point. And then you get to this point where we're really at the nitty-gritty. And this is where we start to, if you're online, I'm probably going to start, if, for example, you're buying a new laptop, I'm going to start talking to you at price comparison sites. I'm going to think about my in-store experience. So what can my employees do to really make you commit to buying me? Can I incentivize them to buy a Dell as opposed to an Apple? Then this bit is really important, the advocacy. So this is like where we say you start to really belong to the brand. But a really important thing is you need to switch off. You need to stop at that point telling people about how great the next deal is, because they've already bought you. So always remember that these people need to be slightly spoken to slightly differently. That plan is exactly the same sort of plan that I would give to Google when we're planning their work for their campaigns for them. But it's still 100% relevant to what we're doing, what we're talking about now. So Airbnb storyboard absolutely everything, okay? They look at what they're trying to do, and then they find out what their role and that they have within that conversation or that moment within you. And then what we then do is we then storyboard that, and we look at every single point where I might be talking to that consumer. And then we work out, can we make that more interesting? So this is something that we did for ASOS, and one of the things that we pulled out was, well, how can we get people to celebrate their deliveries? And you see that, people will send out on Facebook or Twitter like, woohoo, I've got my ASOS delivery. So it's finding those little moments where you can really build some cut through. The last thing I'd say is, like, if you're going to be a sustainable, and we expect you all to be sustainable and successful brand, you need to balance sort of short-term and long-term sales objectives. So your brand, so this is the falling in love, you're looking to increase your market share and the size of that market. That's what brands are trying to do. And they're doing that with, some of the indicators you'll have will be like how many people are coming to your store, how many people are liking and sharing. But at the same time, you're trying to make people buy at that very short-term moment. And you'll be tracking that on how much value of your basket, whether they're registering on your website. And you want to make sure that you're always thinking about how big the brand is, but then also how big the transaction rate is. And then I would say finally, don't be mean. Like, be smart and be open with each other as much as you possibly can. As I said, it's quite a lonely space running your own business, and the more you can kind of collaborate and talk and feel like you're in safe environments to do that, the better. So there you go.